Hey guys, Mike with KC Tarantulas here. This week I got a video for you. I recently was able to do an interview with Dr. Eleanor Spicer Rice. She is an entomologist and an author. She has a new book coming out that is about spiders. So I wanted to talk to her a little bit about that and a little bit about her history and what it is to be an entomologist and what she studies. Hope you guys enjoy it. I just want to let you know that this weekend we have the reptile show here in Kansas City that I'll be going to. And then I have some more stuff coming soon for you guys. So hope you enjoy this. Comment down below, and I will also leave a link down below for Dr. Eleanor's new book that's coming out in January. Thank you.
All right. Well, like I said, I want to keep this pretty informal. Not like I'm very professional, anyways. Recording here in my studio apartment. Yes, I do. I have 37 tarantulas at the moment.
Nice.
So yeah, I just wanted to just kind of chat with you about your history with insects, and then we can get into your recent history with spiders.
Okay.
But I guess first thing for people that are watching the video, probably should let them know who you are if they don't already know who you are.
Who doesn't?
So should I refer to you as just Eleanor or Dr. Spicer Rice, or what's the best way?
I think Eleanor's good.
Okay.
Unless you want to make it seem more important.
Dr. Eleanor.
Then you're welcome to say Doctor, but Eleanor's my name.
All right, sounds good. So you are an entomologist, and
Yes.
you studied at University of Georgia, correct?
I did. I got my master's there, and I got my PhD at NC State University. That's North Carolina State University.
And you actually started it at NC State, correct?
I did. I started at NC State, and I got my undergraduate degree. They didn't have an entomology degree for undergrads, and so I got my undergraduate degree in zoology.
Right. And but it's when you first went to school, you weren't actually going to study insects, were you? That wasn't like your original idea?
It wasn't my original idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But we have programs where you can go and you can explore everything here that you might want to do. And I liked bugs. I didn't know that you could study bugs. But when I found out that you could, then it was all over from there. I studied as much as I could.
Yeah, I would have liked to have known that too back when I was getting out of high school, that I could have just studied bugs.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot of fun. I'm sorry?
What do you do?
Actually, I work in IT, so I work with computers.
Okay.
I tend to understand computers very well, very easily. Comes to me a little easily. So
it makes one of us.
So when you first went to school and to college, you had a very large interest in literature. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I love books, and I love reading about things that aren't anything that I experience in my real life. And so I did spend a lot of time reading, and still do. And but I realized that you could learn about bugs and the way that life works, and that helps you to understand the way that things work in books as well. It helps you to find a deeper meaning in the things that you read. Because bugs they're so abundant. So the more you know about bugs, the more you know about this huge, great, giant thing around us, right? Because they're everywhere, and they're contributing so much to every single thing that we do every day.
They kind of, would you say that insects are kind of an indicator species?
Yeah, they're definitely an indicator species in a lot of different ways. I mean, a lot of things around us. Yeah, from anywhere from health of an environment to health of people.
That's really interesting. And so you obviously have a great love for insects. Where would you attribute that to starting in your life?
Well, I would guess that my love for insects is a lot like your love for spiders, but it could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I just loved them as a child. You have a cat. I loved them as a child, and we'd follow them around. I'm sure you were paying attention to spiders when you were a child, were you?
Actually, it wasn't spiders until much later, but it was definitely animals.
Yeah.
I used to live down in southern Missouri. We had some land and a creek, and I used to come home with pockets full of critters.
Yeah, yeah,
Snakes,
exactly.
small snakes and amphibians, much to my mother's surprise every day. I was that kid that I had to empty my pockets out before I came in the house each day.
That's really adorable. Yes, exactly. And you kept it up. I mean, you still watch them, and it's fascinating to follow things around, and they're always doing stuff.
Yeah, I spend probably more time than I would like to admit just staring into the different enclosures that I have, just because there's almost always one of them that is doing something.
Yeah.
They're grooming, which is really really interesting to watch with tarantulas because you can see the fangs as they kind of pull their leg
Oh,
through
yeah.
and they groom and the fangs move.
Yeah.
Or they'll be. I have some that just they're never happy with the way their enclosure is, so they're constantly picking up dirt and putting it here. Or if I put a fake tree in, they'll tear it down and put it somewhere else. And
What do they do? They just don't like it. They
they
just make it away.
I'm not sure. I have one where she took in one of her earlier enclosures. She took all the substrate from the very bottom. She dug down to the very bottom. She took
Hmm.
all the substrate from the very bottom and she webbed it up in the on the side of the enclosure. And I for no other reason other than to just do it.
Oh, that's
There's a saying
wonderful. Yeah.
with people that are in the hobby. We say spooter is gonna spooter for when you can't explain why your tarantula is doing something, you just say spooter's gonna spooter. It's just gonna do a weird thing just because they tend to do weird
And you
things.
you can't even tell from their life history, like what they would do in the wild, why they would be interested in that.
Well, I mean, I think in the wild they definitely do constantly, upkeep on their surroundings to just kind of lay web, as
Hmm.
for them to get signals when there's prey outside of their burrow.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it just has to do with them trying to set it up in a way that they like, but there doesn't seem to be some of them. It's very obvious. They just dig a hole straight down and then they web around it. Whereas, like I said, I have some that I don't know if something is just wired wrong,
Hmm.
but they're doing some different things.
That is really cool.
But I still want to get back to talking about you.
Oh yeah.
So you have this love of insects, and you have this love of literature,
Hmm.
and you seem to have made those two overlap. And you have written a few books. Most
Right.
of them that you've written so far, or that are released so far, have to do with ants.
Right.
You have your series is Dr. Eleanor's book of common ants.
Right.
And
That's
you
right.
you also seem to not only have that book, but then you have localized versions for different parts of the United States.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. 'Cause
could could you tell me a little bit more about those?
of course. So a while ago, there was a lab at NC State run by a man named Rob Dunn, and he was talking about what he and his person who was working in his lab as a postdoc, Andrea Lucky, were talking about what the most common ant species were that were living around us. And they realized that we have no idea what the most common ant species are living around us because we know what's living in the Amazon, but we don't know what's living in our backyards because we're rarely tourists in our hometown, right? And so they put out a call to action across the United States and said, mail us your ants. Here's how you do it. And they, sent out cookies, and the ants would come to cookies, and the children would put them in bags and mail them over here. And they identified the people at NC States would identify the ants there. And they found out all kinds of crazy stuff. They found out invasion patterns. They found out species that we didn't know that could live in certain places were living in places. They found new species. And one of the things that they found was what the most common ants are that are living around us. And so in doing that, we took those ant species and then I wrote books about what those ant species were. And so the ones that are localized they're intended to come out with museums in those areas because the ant species are so in the United States and Canada are this completely, totally variable habitats here. So they've way different ants in different places. And then after that, we have one coming out about spiders. So based on the ant books, a man named Chris Buttle, who is the dean of students at McGill, and he's an arachnologist, he read the ant books and said, why don't we have one of these about spiders? Because people are scared of spiders. People don't know what they are. So we started to write the spider book. And we realized that we have no idea what the most common spider species are living around us. So we just sent out a call to action among arachnologists saying who should be included. If you were talking about who you are most likely to encounter in your house and in your yard, who is it? And we got tons of people writing back telling us who they think is living around us. And then we wrote the books based on the spider book based on that. So it's United States and Canada. It's North America, north of Mexico. Mexico is a whole different animal with spiders.
Yeah,
So
they have some different species there.
Yeah.
I think I would have my pick, which you can let me know if it is in the book. I would probably pick. I have a fascination also with jumping spiders, which I'm sure there's at least one of in the book.
Yes,
Okay.
we do. We have a couple of different jumping spider species. There's the zebra jumper and the bold jumper, for sure. And then we have we do a little bit of detail of the little the ant mimics and jumping spiders are so great, aren't they?
Yeah, I actually have. I don't know if I can. Well, you can kind of see them there. Let me see if I can get them close enough for you to see. Right there, above my finger.
Yeah.
That's Reggie. He's actually, I can't get a front view
He's
of him.
big.
Yeah,
What is
he's a regal jumping spider.
How fancy.
They are the biggest jumping spider in the United States.
Where'd you get him?
I actually got him from a website called Ken the Bug Guy. Usually in the spring, he has some that he breeds. That's a male. He's been alive a year, which is pretty good for him. He's probably would be considered an old man at this point.
Well, he's a big one.
The females are actually a little bit bigger. So
really?
Yeah, they're probably about the size of a quarter, which is pretty big for a jumping spider.
Wow, yeah, that is really big for a jumping spider.
Yeah. So I want to kind of take a little bit of a step back to talk about your ant studies. And I was kind of looking through some of your book and reading a little bit, and I noticed one thing that this isn't really it's not a dry scientific read. It's definitely more of you tend to paint kind of a story. You definitely kind of, I would say, anthropomorphize some of them a little bit. I did have one spot that I read that I was really entertained when you were talking about the crazy ant, and you talked about your aunt, your aunt. I think it was Aunt Nini.
Yes, I do have a crazy Aunt Nini.
What?
That's real. She really did do all those things.
What? Just a little snippet. Could you tell everyone a little bit about your Aunt Nini?
Yes. And she also was not very happy that the only time I've ever written about her, she was written as the crazy aunt. But she can't deny what she did. I mean, so I think in the book I told one thing that she did, which was she took my dead grandfather. He was cremated in a box, and they would drive him around. And, they show up at your house and they say, could you go get your grandfather out of the car? And they took him to my wedding, and they put him in the choir loft at the wedding so that he could see. Like, he didn't sit with them. He needed to see what was happening in this box. And then they had the photographer take these pictures of this box sitting in the chair at the wedding as if this was normal. And everybody acted like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like, this is what should be happening right now. And in I don't know if I have my wedding book. I should get my wedding album out. Well, in the wedding album, they had his box pasted as like a picture as the background of one of the pictures. So there's all these pictures of our happy day with my dead grandfather overlaid on top of my dead grandfather who's just watching this, from his box.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my Aunt Nini.
And
she's kind of like the aunt. Yeah.
and you somehow tie that in together with a species of ant.
Well, crazy ant. Yeah.
And it works.
Well, there they are. But they do none of those things.
You definitely have an interesting way of
so what we found out with these common ant species, which is kind of crazy, is the way I wrote the chapters was I went and I did a lit review for every species, and I just would write a 1-sentence summary of what every paper found. Sometimes it took more. Some of them were very in detail for all of these species. And for some of these most common species, they didn't have common names because nobody ever looks at them. So even though they're around us all the time, we haven't even called them anything. And B, some of them had barely been studied. They have no idea what they're doing around us. Crazy ants, we know what's going on because they bother us, but there are other
Mhm.
species that are super common that don't bother us at all, and nobody has studied them.
Yeah, I
So,
think you also were. I noticed that you did some research about invasive species and related to showing dominance over a species that was native in the region, and they had kind of formed a neighborly bond where one of them was more dominant. Correct?
oh yeah, well, I don't know which species that is, but that does happen.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's just something I was when I was
Yeah,
doing some
they
research that I noticed
they
that
do have
you had written about.
they kind of blend in together
Hmm.
in their ways. They occupy their little niches, and sometimes the ants will help each other out. I mean, there are ant gardens, in South America where some ants will be finding seeds, and some ants will be building nests, and some ants will be planting the seeds in the ant gardens, and they all live in there together. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but there'll be different species just helping each other out.
So when you were doing your research for your new book, which is Dr. Eleanor's book of common spiders, correct? Is that
Yes,
the
didn't really
title?
stray too far from the theme there.
It's all right.
Yeah,
It's a good theme. It's a good theme.
yeah.
Was there anything that you found surprising during your research for that book?
Every single thing. I did not
Okay.
know anything about spiders.
Right.
First of all, you do. I did not. And Chris Buttle, who wrote the book with me, I mean, this is all old news to him. He did a lot of the research, and I did a lot of like the storyline part of it. But I did not know how crazy spiders are. I did not know about their insane mating rituals and the language that they have between each other.
Mhm.
And I did not know. I mean, I didn't know what they were doing in my house. I knew that I had a lot of spiders in my house, but I didn't know what they were doing. And they're nuts. I mean, they are really nuts. And it's amazing to me that spiders, some of them have even made it this far, based on what they have to do just to get through, you know, just to get through the infancy, much less, growing up to find a mate somewhere. I mean, those goldenrod spiders, those males just wander up and down flowers, just hoping that somebody's going to be sitting up there. And then if she's sitting up there, she still might eat them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it
It's
still might not work out for them. I mean,
it's
how
really
do they
interesting how
even get
much work they
things
put
up?
into just they put a lot of work into it, and they still might just get eaten at the end of the
Oh
day.
yeah, it's so romantic, but it's also terrifying. Like, it's just wonderful, and I can't believe how wonderful spiders are. I've been afraid of them my whole life, and now I'm just totally fascinated by spiders and what they're doing.
Now, I think you did mention that you at one point had a pet tarantula.
I did have a pet
So
tarantula.
you were terrified of spiders, but you
That was
also
my deal. I thought, as an entomologist, you should not be scared of spiders. So I got a little baby Mexican rose hair,
Mhm.
and I thought, I read this, those parable where that man lifts a calf every day, and then in the end, he's carrying a cow around. So I thought if I could feed this baby tarantula, by the end, I would not be afraid of this giant spider. But in the end, I just had a giant, terrifying tarantula in my. I was just really afraid of it. And but it was a male, and so he lived about 2 years, which is long for him, I think, or maybe he lived longer than that. He lived a long time for a male,
Mhm.
and then he kicked the bucket. God bless him. I pinned him because I'm an entomologist,
Of course.
but I didn't bring him to my wedding. I just,
I was wondering if there was just a big section with
yeah,
everybody
just a
brought
section for those
their
who've gone before but are still with us.
their
Yes,
deceased animals and
yeah, yeah, exactly. It starts out with, yeah.
so when does the your new book about spiders come out?
It's coming out in January.
Okay.
So, and this is for people who are like me or were like me before I started learning about them. It's for people who don't really know a lot about spiders
Hmm.
but want to know more about what's going on around them and wonder what they're doing in your house and all the, the neat things about them. Then this is for them. If you're a spider expert, you're probably going to be like, eh.
I mean, I don't know. When I was reading some of your book about common ants, I mean, your style definitely lends itself to even if you already know this information,
Oh, that's really
you
sweet.
tend to put it in a different way that kind of makes it a different gives
Thanks.
it kind of a different view that I think even people that know this information might actually be interested to see your take on it. And I assume that I think that it would probably be interesting to hear your journey through learning about these spiders as well.
Oh, right. You want me to tell you right now?
Sure.
I mean, it was terrifying though. Can we say one more thing about spiders?
Sure.
Okay, what do you think is the scariest spider for
The,
you?
the scariest
Are
spider?
you scared of any spider?
Um,
Does
hmm.
anything make you jump?
I mean, even my own tarantulas make me jump sometimes just because of how
Really?
fast they are. I mean, sometimes, like I've rehoused one that has a bite that if it was to bite me would probably not make me feel good for a couple days. I had one it ran up my arm and into my armpit. And, once it hit my arm, I actually moved my arm in an motion like that, and I felt so bad afterwards, but it was involuntary.
But you can't help it.
Yeah,
You're
it's
just trying
completely
to save your,
involuntary.
yeah.
So, yeah,
If
I
you're
mean, I
buying
would
it,
say that they can still make me jump just because of how fast they are, because they can be incredibly fast. But I don't know if there's any spider that I would not, if I saw it, that I wouldn't look closer, because
yeah.
that's
Okay,
my
well,
reaction is to
I
go,
look
oh,
closer. But I look closer in the way that somebody looks over a ledge. Like I want to
right.
see, but I'm scared the whole time. Like with fishing spiders, I'm still scared of fishing spiders. They're frightening to me.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
assuming that if I was say in South America and I came across a wandering spider, I would
yeah.
probably be maybe the looking over the edge style, but I would still have to have a look 'cause
You
they are
still have
quite
to look.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. You can't look away. I can
Okay.
see that,
Well,
but they're frightening.
um, I I think that's about all the questions that I had for
Or
you.
fun
I do
questions.
have one more though,
What?
and this one's a little important. I just wanted to know, is there a reason why Carolina barbecue is so inferior to Kansas City barbecue?
Boo on you! Boo! No way! How do I hang this thing up? Let me get my giant hand just to boo. And that y'all don't even count as barbecue. That's the other
Whoa,
thing.
no, we totally count.
No, you really don't. You don't count. You're like you call yourselves barbecue, and but you just dump a bunch of junk on there. You can't even taste it. I mean, come on down.
I
Come here.
I beg to differ. I think we're
I think this needs to be settled in person.
I think so.
We
I think
need to
so.
come on down. We'll
I'll
go
bring
to
some burn-ins and
Yes.
then I can.
Before I go though, will you show me a big spider?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. I'll show you the biggest. I have a mature male of a salmon pink bird eater,
Oh,
Lasiodora pahara habana, and he is quite large. Let me grab him.
I don't know what that is though. You also have to tell me a fact about him.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Here. Okay,
Um,
so he's kind of curled up right now because I just moved the enclosure.
oh
Oh,
wow.
there he
Look at
moved
this
for you.
guy. Whoa.
So just to give you a frame of size, there my hand is right next to him. Whoop, let me see the glare. Sorry, I'm
He's
trying to figure out the.
cute, isn't he?
And then I don't know if you can see, but if you see on his top leg here,
Uh-huh. I can see that.
you
Yeah.
should see a little appendage growing off of that.
Uh-huh.
That is a tibial hook.
Hmm.
That is a sign of a mature male.
He's ready to
Um,
go.
that means that he is ready to go. What those are for is that when he goes to mate with a lady,
Mm-hmm.
he actually will lift her up, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
put those hooks right under her fangs to hold her fangs at bay, so that he can do his deed.
Oh, that is
So
awesome.
those are a growth that they only get on their ultimate molt.
That is
So their very
really,
last
really
molt.
cool. That is nice. Thank you for showing him to me.
Yeah,
Does he have a
absolutely.
name?
He does not have a name because I recently was just given him.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody dropped him off at a pet store that I go to.
Oh.
They
Uh-huh.
didn't want him, I guess. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. I know when they mature, it kind of starts a countdown timer in terms of lifespan.
Right.
But they said he wasn't eaten, and they thought he was going to die soon, so they just gave him to me. And I
Uh-huh.
brought him home, and he ate some worms for me right away. I gave him a
Oh.
big super worm, and he was immediately on it. So
So cute.
yeah, I haven't named him yet, but I'm sure we can come up with something. I do have names for all 37 others.
Oh my
So
God. Well,
all
that's
right,
really cool. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for
it was
letting me chat with you
yeah,
today.
it was a pleasure to meet you as well. Dr. Eleanor's Book of Common Spiders comes out in January. I think everybody should pick it up. I'm probably going to buy a copy for my mom.
That's a good
She's
idea.
actually very scared of spiders. I have kind of, she was not so excited when I started getting into them, but now she actually looks at the pictures and knows their names. She has her favorites, so I should probably get her this book because I think she would probably relate a lot to your viewpoint on it.
Oh, that's really cute. Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks
I
a
hope
lot.
to
Yeah.
see more of your cast soon. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I just turned it up. That's why you saw my giant hand going.
Just thought you had a really large hand.
I do. This
okay.
actual size compared to my head size.